like drifting? Do you like street racing movies? Okay, because this is the original stunt car from a hit movie that just came out on Amazon called My Fault. This is the car that I drove in the stunt sequences. It's an awesome piece of kit, and I've driven lots of different cars in lots of different movies and stunt sequences. James Bond, Aston Martin, the Batmobile in Dark Knight Rises, Dom Toretto's Daytona in Fast and Furious 6. I even drove Han Solo's Speeder in a Star Wars movie. This, though, is one of the very best cars I've ever driven. I'm going to show you why. In Japan, they do things differently. Their culture is based on respect and precision. Their trains run on time. Taxi drivers wear white gloves, and they like pruning small trees. They're quite conformist until, well, they aren't. Then things can get pretty crazy. And that's what happened with Japanese motorsport. First, with Kunimitsu Takahashi, the father of drifting, who became a dominant force racing the original Skyline in Japan. And then with the Drift King, aka Keiichi Tsuchiya, both of whom became legends of the power slide in rear-wheel drive cars with their engines in the front. Now, you can't search best car for drifting without stumbling across Nissan. Then the question is, what's the best Nissan for drifting? If you're a Fast and Furious fan, then you probably think that you know the answer. The Nissan GT-R R34, aka Godzilla. This one in its original midnight purple factory issue paint. It's got a few mods. This R34 GT-R has plenty of external features that have been modified, including the carbon fibre canards, the Z-Tune carbon bonnet, Toyo proxies, carbon boot lip spoiler, carbon swept-back raised spoiler legs, custom angel eye headlights, top secret rear diffuser, huge Nismo intercooler on the inside and hard pipes with precision 6266 turbo on a 6-boost manifold, with turbo smart external wastegate with Screamer injector dynamics, Tomoe cams with adjustable cam gears and rocker covers, painted also in midnight purple to match the exterior, a Link G4 Plus ECU, and that is producing 640 horsepower. So plenty of punch to go with the looks. If you travel as much as I do, then using your phone abroad can be a challenge if you don't want to get hammered with roaming fees. If I'm traveling somewhere like Japan, see cars like these, or heading to America, I use an eSIM, which I can download from an app called Skyline, to save money when I'm traveling abroad. It works in over 190 different countries, and it's really easy to set up and install on your phone. In America, using an eSIM saves you lining up in a shop where they'll probably try and lock you into a long-term contract. With Skyline, you can switch your plan on and off, and it comes with security features like secure browsing and a virtual location to get full access to content from anywhere in the world. You just download the Skyline app for iOS or Android, then select the data plan you want to use, you data-hungry beast, pick the country you're visiting, and remember to use my discount code BenCollins for 15% off your plan. And don't forget your passport. So the R34 is the same model that Brian drives in Fast and Furious 2 and Fast and Furious 4. Or is it? Because actually they use modified cars for that, which I'm going to get to a bit later. But the R34 definitely got famous in the hands of Brian's character in the Fast and Furious movies. And you can kind of see why. It's just got such an amazing, aggressive presence. It's a really pretty car. It's got a lot of power. And kind of see why this has become such a cult classic, because you can tune so much power into it, because the engine can just take so much pounding. Tuners have been going for it. This one apparently has been tuned up to 630 horsepower, and oh blimey, a lot of backfire. And people kind of wrongly assume that this is a real drift wagon. In fact, it's not really. These cars are built to do one thing above all things, and that is to go extremely fast. For starters, it's got all-wheel drive, and yes, it's got some sort of torque vectoring going on, but that's sole purpose is to send power to the tyres that have got grip and make the most of it, not to overwhelm the rear axle in the way that some of the modern four-wheel drive systems have got with their drift modes. The the GTR uses four-wheel drive to create grip. And you'll see when I'm driving, there are moments when the car goes into yaw and that system just wakes up and says thanks very much, and I'm going to do my best to restore grip. So this car in particular, which may have been modified, suspension too, is quite light. It's got very lively turn-in, so I can get a little bit of a slide on, but very quickly the power sorts it out, sends some extra power through the fronts and neutralises the oversteer. That is not what you want in a drift car, but it is what you want for having fun. This car's really good. The extra bit of power is kind of just what it wants, really, to make this car a little bit alive. Get that turbo coming on a little bit sooner, blasting you out of the corners. But power to weight ratio, this car's still pretty good. Even the standard model with the 2.6 litre twin turbocharged engine, woohoo, with its 6-cylinder inline lump, knocking out enough power to shoot it from 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds standard, so maybe in this tuned one it's a bit quicker than that. The power though on this one is quite high up. I just feel a little bit unkind revving it that hard. The owner's made his own mods inside the car too. Looks like he's had his 3D printer out on the dash. What's amazing is the values, because these cars not that long ago were relatively affordable. This one's probably now going for about £150,000 because it's one of the very few cars in this country with the original midnight purple paint. I think it's one of 5 or 6 cars in the UK that has that. Whereas some of the other models that have got a lot of the similar performance are significantly less. I love this thing. The Godzilla, it's a beast. I mean, it is quite an animal. I remember testing the GT1 version of this car, and it retains the similar DNA. It's a car that you really have to manhandle. More often than not, the car is kind of driving you, and you're having to work around it. You have to pitch the thing into corners to lurch the weight across, to break traction. Even in the race car, it was like that. You'd be very heavy-handed. It's a brute of a car to sort of override what the car essentially wants to do. Even though this thing's got no traction control, its diff is trying to auto-correct. So there's a lot going on. And as a purist, that's not necessarily what I'm mostly attracted to in a car. Quite like something that you can be a bit more finesse with. That's not to say I don't enjoy a bit of a sumo wrestle every now and again. Where you start to really feel the resistance in the front axle is in the faster corners. In the slower medium speed stuff, you can be a hooligan with the steering and pitch the thing in. But once you start going a bit quicker, you start to run out of mechanical grip. And there isn't a lot of aero on these things, despite the playthings that have been put on the front and the rear. This car is mostly doing it with mechanical grip. So anything above 50, you're either going to be throwing the tail in and throwing a Hail Mary at the same time, or you can have those front wheels poking out the side of the car and resisting your efforts to turn. That's its natural state. Understeer and then a bit of oversteer. It's fun though, of course it is. That's why people love them. But a drift car, not really. And the stunt team for Fast and Furious 4, they knew that as well. That's why they used the GTT, which is this car, instead of a GTR, because the GTR is basically a magnet on rails, just too much grip. Whereas this car was built originally with just rear-wheel drive, less weight because it hasn't got a front axle, 140 kilograms less than a GTR. But it isn't that much slower. It's still got the 2.5 litre engine, a little bit less power, 275 horsepower from a single turbo, but it's tons of fun. Over the years they've been modified as well. This one has got the body kit on it to look like a GTR, same as what they did in the Fast and Furious movie. But it's pretty cool. It's also a lot cheaper Wouldn't use the word cheap to describe these cars now, they have climbed in value. This one's now worth about 50 grand, and the GTR in that purple is worth over £150,000. Some of those ones, some of the special spec cars that have come from Japan are worth over 200,000 quid. So it's not Godzilla, but I bet you it's a lot more fun. To get this 1999 Nissan Skyline R34 GTT to look like a GTR, it's gone through a pretty comprehensive conversion, including a respray to Bayside Blue. It's got the GTR front bumper, the Nismo side skirts, Nismo rear bumper, rear wing, LED rear tail lights, and the Nismo clear front indicators. Engine-wise, it's got an aftermarket exhaust system and Iridium plugs. Drivetrain-wise, it's pretty much the same, but suspension, it's got HKS lowering springs with OEM calipers. It's also got a custom map to boost the engine output to 580 horsepower. Inside, there's a few modifications too, including the boost cage, and the CD player has also been upgraded. With bigger alloys, this car's weighing in, though pretty much the same as the original car. But as for the drive, only one way to find out. Oh, listen to that! Holy moly, that is a lot of wheel spin. This car, it's really interesting. I mean, there's a slight difference between the engines, between this one, the 2.5 and the 2.6 litre in the GTR. This one just revs, it's got a really much sweeter tune on it, but I instantly realised that this is rear wheel drive, because it's roughly the same amount of power going through just the rear axle, and it lit up as soon as I got into second gear and third. So it's different. You obviously take away an axle and you're going to feel quite a sensational difference in terms of handling. I mean, this is amazing. It's the first time I've driven one of these. It just feels kind of like what the GTR should always have been. It's a bit like the Balboni Lamborghini, where they took out the front axle. And one movie I worked on, we kind of did that the homegrown way, just literally just removed the prop shafts. But with the Balboni, they put a bit of a tune onto it. They adapted the camber settings to give it a bit more grip than what we had. This one feels a little bit more rough around the edges. Plus, it's on a fairly performance level tyre that wants a bit of warming up. But it's a very different animal. The lightness you can feel in the steering, which, because we're not carrying as much weight in the front axle, there's less inertia across that front end. And in the GTR, I noticed that it really had a very aggressive steering setting on it. So you turn the wheel, it's quite pointy. This one feels a bit more stable in terms of steering. I would say they built in a little bit of understeer to make up for the fact that when you get on the gas, it's going to do things. It's got very interesting power delivery compared to the GTR. Hear that turbo going, working really hard. All right, let's see what this thing's made of. Yeah, it's so much more drift friendly. The GTR though, is built for speed. It's out and out performance. I think it's cool that Nissan were like, yeah, let's make a more affordable model with the GTT. But this thing is super, super playful. And as with the GTR, you can tune it up to pop and bang, give it this really linear power that I can feel under my right foot with a slightly smaller engine. It's got a really nice pitch to it that's just, I don't know, it's got a little bit more snap to it sound-wise and in the way it's laying down the power than the other car. All that power though thundering through the rear axle. This is a drift car. You've got a lot of precision because in the GTR I noticed all that inertia going through the front axle. It was pretty lively on turn-in. This one's a little bit more neutral on the turn-in, knowing that all hell is going to break loose when that turbo spools up. All the power goes through the rear axle. This car's really fun and playful. What's great with the Nissans is they're really drivable. I've spent a lot of time in the 350Z and the 370Z as well. These ones with the longer axle, just much easier to control. And I have to say, this car is just sits a lot more flat on the suspension than the GTR does. It's a lot easier to throw around, it's a lot easier to play with on the throttle. and I don't feel like I'm fighting the car. So I don't really understand the massive price discrepancy between one of these that's more accessible, fun to chuck about, and a GTR. I can't believe it's all down to performance. A lot of it is down to looks. Hard thing now actually is finding one of these cars, a GTT, that's in good nick. Because it was kind of like the poorer younger brother of the GTR, it did get a bit neglected. People didn't care about them as much. All the focus went on the big boy, and there aren't many of these that are tiny. This one's in pretty good shape. Warming up. She's warming up to me. It's such a cool car. With the kit on, I mean without the kit, let's say, it looks a bit skinny, I'll be honest. But with it on, you would never really know. From the way it handles, so much fun. It's got the big angry presence, but less weight, more playful. I prefer the balance of the car as well. It hasn't got that crazy aggressive turn in that you need in a GTR to throw it into corners, because this thing's doing it itself. Loving it. I don't know what we call this one really. If GTR is Godzilla, this has to be like, I don't know, Godzuki seems like a bit of an insult to come up with something else. The other thing, I know that these are both tuned cars, but let's face it, 0.1 of a litre, 2.5 instead of 2.6. I don't think this car is much slower than a GTR in a straight line. There is, of course, only one way to prove that, which would be in a drag race. But this thing is absolutely thundering along. I really like it. I love lightness, love what it does. I love the rear axle only. Can't say I'm really a big fan of the four-wheel drive on anything. Questioning my life choices with the 911 Turbo. That's why the GT2 RS is the best car. I'm going to struggle to give this back. Lovely, lovely motor. The RB25, it is such a great unit, so versatile. A tuner's paradise! Because it's just so robust. There'd have to be some sort of battle of the tuners at some point. People are pumping out over 1,000 brake horsepower in these bad boys. Cars just lap it up. The car can take it basically, the chassis is strong enough to put up with that. I think that's why these things are such, you can call it modern classic, they're still, what are they? Quite old now, decades old, but they've got what it takes. Homologated racing cars for the road. Right, moment of truth. As always, expect the worst. You never know. Might get a positive result, but it's unlikely in a straight line. Okay. Oh, too much wheel spin. When I beat the GTT off the line, that's it. She's gonna blow, Captain! There's some bad sounds coming out of my little car. A little bit disappointed in the GTR there. I thought that was going to go faster, but a predictable result there. There it goes. Now, I like to think that it's saying, "Hello Ben, have a nice day. You're a legendary driver," but it might have something to do with Japanese tolls, I'm not sure. But I like hearing that voice. So finally, I get to the S15. This car is like the samurai to the heavyweight sumo wrestlers that are the GTR and the GTT. It weighs 1,250 kilograms, that's 160 less than the GTT, which is already 150 or 60 less than the GTR. So it's a much lighter car, and it's really finely balanced, and it makes all the difference. And not only that, the weight is really beautifully adjusted 50-50 weight distribution. So it's got less inertia in the front from the inline 4-cylinder engine, single turbo on this car, but it's so easy to drive, it's so playful. You can just do whatever you like with it. It's really accessible. This car appeared in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift in the hands of Sean Boswell when he gate crashed a street race with the legendary drifter Takashi driving the Nissan 350Z Fairlady. And it didn't do very well, to be honest. It pretty much hit every wall in the car park and everywhere else that he drove it, as he famously learnt how to drift. And this car could easily have been consigned to the history books as a bit of a lame duck, but that's far from the truth. First time I drove this thing was on the set for My Fault, and I just couldn't believe it. You can drift this car on one finger. It's so easy to drive because the weight distribution is so neat. It's so docile and throwable. Even though it doesn't have a lot of power, 250 brake, it uses it really well. Lightweight platform, and this is Nissan's last proper front engine rear wheel drive sports car. They stopped making them after that. They became more middle front, and I find this car so much easier to drive than things like the 350 and the 370 that came later. It's a lovely bit of kit. 6-speed gearbox, really versatile, and although it's really good for drifting, this car's got a really good balance for some high-speed driving as well. So I think it's great is that of all the cars they could have chosen for the car chase on My Fault, that they picked this one, because it was definitely wronged in Fast and Furious. We got to showcase what this thing is really about. It's super compliant handling, so easy to flick it sideways, and the power to weight ratio just really makes it sing. In we go. Very playful machine. The only problem is you do go through the tyres if you drive it like that. The other little tool I've got here is the handbrake, something I'm very fond of. This one is a hydraulic handbrake that sends all the braking to the rear, and it locks on to both rear wheels, unlike your sort of normal handbrake in a road car that only attaches to one. And just while I'm talking about handbrakes, that's the reason why if you stop on a snowy hill and apply the handbrake and wonder why you're skidding backwards, it's because you've gone from using all 4 wheels to brake down to 1. The hydraulic handbrake cures that problem instantly. So for stunt driving, it's wicked. You just yee-haw it on the handbrake and you're away. It makes it super precise. You can do very quick 180-degree turns, 90 degrees. Very pliable, and there's a fair amount of give in the lever because we've set it up that way so that you can moderate how much rear brake you're using for any given circumstance. So it's a great way to initiate a drift. 3 ways to do it really. You can do it on the steering like that, then onto the power. You can use the clutch. This one's got an uprated clutch so it can put up with hooliganism from the likes of me, so I can pop it a few times in the corner, keep that drift going. Or you can initiate with the hydraulic handbrake, the e-brake. You often see that built into the cars on these movies. You can also obviously use it for doing mega 180s into sort of small spaces or into car parks. It's one of my favourite ways to park a car, of course. So you slow it down, usually about sort of 20 miles an hour. Around you go, 180, stall the engine. And get fired basically if you do that. And there aren't many of them, especially that are in a decent condition. These cars were fairly underrated back in the day. Like I say, they were somewhat maligned on film sets until recently. So to find a good one is quite tricky, and you're usually going to be getting them straight from Japan. There are a few people that have caretaken these things, brought them to the UK and protected them, and they're a bit of an endangered species, but I do really love it. So easy, so easy. Pretty much on one finger. So there you got it. Three different cars, three very different styles of driving. Got the GTR, super grippy, super fast, super aggressive. GTT, brilliant for drifting. And then you've got the Silvia, the lightweight ninja. Let me know in the comments which one you like the most and what I should drive next.